Aita, drama, secrets, confessions. Welcome to Trove Reddit.
I never thought love could turn into an invisible prison. The first day he walked into my life, I believed I had met destiny. We kissed under the rain, laughed until our stomachs hurt, held each other like we would never let go. But then everything changed so fast I couldn't even breathe. From passionate embraces, we became two strangers eating dinner without looking at each other. From promises of forever, now there was only deadly silence filling the room. Some nights I lay there listening to him texting someone else. Some mornings I looked in the mirror and no longer recognized myself. I used to think love died because of betrayal. But no. It dies because of repetition. It dies because of the silence that slowly kills every piece of your heart. I don't tell the story to complain. I tell it to warn you. Love doesn't explode in a single day, it bleeds out every second until all that's left is an empty shell. Are you ready to hear the raw truth? Subscribe now. Because what I'm about to say might change the way you see love forever. I never thought love could turn into an invisible prison. The first day he walked into my life, I believed I had met destiny. We kissed under the rain, laughed until our stomachs hurt, held each other like we would never let go. But then everything changed so fast I couldn't even breathe. From passionate embraces, we became two strangers eating dinner without looking at each other. From promises of forever, now there was only deadly silence filling the room. Some nights I lay there listening to him texting someone else. Some mornings I looked in the mirror and no longer recognized myself. I used to think love died because of betrayal. But no. It dies because of repetition. It dies because of the silence that slowly kills every piece of your heart. I don't tell the story to complain. I tell it to warn you. Love doesn't explode in a single day, it bleeds out every second until all that's left is an empty shell. Are you ready to hear the raw truth? Subscribe now. Because what I'm about to say might change the way you see love forever. It all began with things so small, I thought I was just paranoid. A text message that took too long to answer. A glance that dodged mine when I asked what was on his mind. One night, he said he had to stay late at the office, but the strange perfume on his shirt told me everything I didn't want to hear. Have you ever ignored the red flags? Just because the truth was too terrifying to face. I kept telling myself he was only tired, only stressed from work. I made a perfect dinner, set fresh flowers in the living room, hoping when he walked in, everything would feel normal again. But instead of a smile, I was met with ice-cold silence. I smiled. He stayed quiet. I asked. He snapped. Every word between us became a knife, slicing through the fragile rope that held us together. If it were you, would you keep waiting? Or rip the mask off immediately? One night, I caught him outside, whispering on the phone. His voice soft, tender, the very tone he once saved only for me. But when I stepped out, he hung up in an instant. And the way he looked at me. It was like I was an intruder in my own life, no longer the woman he once loved. Tell me, have you ever lived that moment? The second when the person lying beside you suddenly becomes a stranger. Sleep vanished. I spent nights frozen in the dark, listening to his breathing, desperately searching for a spark of love inside the widening silence. But the tighter I held on, the more I realized I was clutching at nothing. So what would you do? Let go? Or keep holding on, knowing it's killing you? Then came the night I felt fear inside my own home. Not fear of nightmares, but fear of the truth hiding behind every fake smile. I could feel it, the collapse was coming, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Do you believe a single crack can shatter an entire heaven? Subscribe now. Because this is just the beginning. The fall you're about to witness is darker and far more devastating than I ever imagined. It was supposed to be just another night. Dinner was done. The house was quiet. Too quiet. So thick, it felt like the air itself was suffocating me. And then I asked the question. Who were you talking to on the balcony? Sounds innocent, right? But his reaction. That question didn't just hit a nerve, it lit the fuse. He shot up from his chair like I had stabbed him. His eyes. Burning. Wild. Like I was staring at a stranger. And before I could even move. Slap. The sound ripped through our tiny kitchen like a gunshot. I swear time froze. My cheek was on fire. My head spun. But trust me, the real pain wasn't on my face. It was in my heart. Shattered. Because tell me. What do you do when the person you trust the most becomes the first one to hurt you? I didn't cry. Not one tear. I just stared at him, waiting, begging for regret. For an apology. But guess what? Nothing. Not even guilt. Just cold. Empty. Like he was daring me to challenge him. He didn't say sorry. He didn't explain. He just walked away. And that silence cut deeper than the slap ever could. But here's the truth. Once violence walks in, it never leaves. And that slap, it was just the beginning. The scars that followed never healed. So don't look away. Hit subscribe because what comes next will leave you speechless. After that slap, everything changed. Not with screaming, not with fighting, but with something far worse. Silence. Have you ever lived in a house where every tick of the clock feels like a knife cutting deeper? Because that's exactly what it became for me. He didn't yell anymore. He didn't argue. He just stopped. Stopped looking at me. Stopped answering me. Stopped caring. And let me tell you something. That silence, it killed me faster than any bruise ever could. I would smile, he looked away. I would cry, he turned his back. Do you understand what that does to someone's soul? No blood. No scars. But the wounds were everywhere. Day after day, I became a ghost in my own home. He ate. He slept. He left. He returned. Like I wasn't even there. The house turned into a prison. And my jailer, the man I once called the love of my life. Have you ever wanted to scream, so loud the walls shake, but deep down you knew? No one would answer. I started to blame myself. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I deserved this punishment. Or maybe our love had died long ago, and I was the only one too blind to see it. One night, I tried. I wrapped my arms around him, desperate to feel something. Anything. And what did he do? He pushed me away. Like I was poison. That night, I didn't cry. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering. How do you escape a nightmare that doesn't end when you wake up? Have you ever felt more alone sleeping next to someone than when you're completely by yourself? I have. And here's the truth. Silence can be the loudest form of abuse. So tell me, if you were me, would you stay? Or would you run? Because the silence, it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a storm I never saw coming. Subscribe now, because what happened next will shake you to your core. I once thought silence was the cruelest thing he could ever do to me. But I was wrong. The cruelest thing was the truth I stumbled upon. Can you believe that one forgotten email can change your entire life? One afternoon, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up. I didn't mean to look. But then, those words hit me in the face. I miss you. When will we meet again? My hands trembled, my heart dropped into a bottomless pit. I opened the email. And an entire world collapsed. Pictures of him with another woman. Sweet words he no longer said to me. Secret travel plans he once promised we would take together. If you were in that moment, would you scream, smash everything? Or stay silent like me? I sat frozen, listening to the water running in the bathroom, knowing my marriage had ended right there. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled into the mirror and whispered to myself. Fine, this game isn't over yet. Have you ever stood at the crossroads between forgiveness and revenge? Subscribe now, because the next part will shock you. When a woman like me decides to rise up, nothing will ever be the same again. What do you think a betrayed woman does first? Cry? Beg? Throw his luggage out on the street? No. I chose silence. Silence to observe. Silence to plan. Silence to prepare a fatal strike. I became a detective. I read every email. Saved every picture. Copied every message. I pretended to know nothing. I smiled. I cooked. I lay beside him every night. But in my mind, I was writing the script for revenge. He never realized the credit card I controlled was tracking every secret getaway. He never saw that the innocent wife beside him had turned into a wolf in the dark. And then, I struck my first blow. I sent one intimate photo of him and his mistress straight to his mother, the woman who once loved me like her own daughter. I wanted her to see the truth before I ripped off his mask in front of the entire world. When she called me, her voice trembling. Is it true, my dear? I simply answered. I'm sorry for hiding it this long. But that was only the beginning. For 3 weeks, I prepared a marriage anniversary surprise. The guest list. Family. Friends. Coworkers. And yes, his little mistress too. A perfect stage for the greatest show of my life. Have you ever imagined building your own trap? And watching the betrayer fall right into it? That night, as everyone raised their glasses, I stepped onto the stage, grabbed the mic, and said, "This is the man I once loved. But this is also the man who betrayed me." The big screen lit up. Emails. Photos. messages, evidence of every lie. The room exploded. He turned pale. The mistress froze under dozens of burning eyes. The entire hall shattered under the weight of the twist no one saw coming. You think I stopped there? No. The game had just begun. Subscribe right now, because my next move shook the entire city. I thought everything ended that night in the banquet hall. But I was wrong. The video exposing the truth didn't just stay on the big screen. One guest had recorded the entire scene and uploaded it online. Overnight, it spread across the entire city. His name became the most searched keyword on both Facebook and Twitter. The man once praised as the perfect role model was now branded a pathetic cheater. At his workplace, the company inbox was flooded with angry emails. Some even threatened a boycott, saying they refused to work with a liar. What I never expected was that the mistress would be dragged into an even harsher storm. Her pictures were shared with vicious comments. People dug into her past, from her school records to unpaid debts. She even posted a video, crying and begging people to stop attacking her, but it was far too late. His family was so shocked they couldn't even leave the house. His mother called me, sobbing, begging me to take the clip down. She said, "You've destroyed this family's honor." I replied, "No, your son destroyed it himself." And then, things spun even further out of control. A local news channel reached out, asking to interview me about the betrayal story shaking the community. I just laughed. I never thought my life would turn into entertainment for an entire city. But maybe, this exposure wasn't a curse, it was my chance to rise, no longer the victim, but the main character of my own story. And him, the man who thought he could live a double life, was now trembling, staring at the ruins of everything he once had. His career, his reputation, his love, it all turned to ashes within days. But you know what? This still isn't the end. I still have one last card to play. A move that could make sure he never dares lift his head again. Want to know what card I'll play? Hit subscribe right now, because you don't want to miss the final twist. Everyone thought the nightmare was over. That I was just a betrayed woman. Standing up, exposing the truth. But they had no idea. I was holding a secret even he couldn't imagine. Months of suspicion. I wasn't just watching. I was hunting. Tracking every shady transaction. Saving every suspicious email. Collecting proof he never knew I had. And then, the bomb dropped. My husband. The man I loved. Not only cheating, but stealing hundreds of thousands from his own company. Fake clients, fake contracts, gone money. All documented. All in my hands. He begged me on his knees. I looked straight into his eyes and whispered, "Think this is just about cheating? I've been planning your apocalypse for months." The next morning, I sent everything to the company board. Lawyers. Police. Handcuffs. Neighbors watching. The man who thought he could live a double life. Crushed. And me. I was free. Not a victim. A survivor. A winner. You think the story ends there? Think again. Because the city has now learned. You never mess with the wrong woman. Hit subscribe now if you want to see the full fallout, the insane twists, and how betrayal became my ultimate revenge. Everything ended in a scene I never imagined. A love that once felt like a dream. Reduced to ashes in just a few months. The man who promised he'd protect me forever was the one who destroyed every ounce of trust I had. But I didn't break. I rose from the rubble. I learned to love myself more than anyone ever could. And I realized, sometimes betrayal isn't the end. It's the spark that ignites a whole new chapter. The city still talks about it like it was a shockwave. But for me, it was rebirth. One chapter closed, another opened, stronger, brighter, unstoppable. I look back now and think, if I had stayed silent, I would have lost myself. If I had looked the other way, he would still be laughing at my pain. And if I hadn't dared to explode, I'd still be a shadow in my own life. This isn't just my story. It's a warning to anyone trapped in a suffocating relationship. Never lose yourself. If you believe some truths are crazier than any movie, hit subscribe now. Because today's story is just the beginning. The other secrets, the ones even more shocking, are waiting for you. Love didn't kill me. Betrayal made me reborn. The biggest twist of my life didn't come from a movie. It came from the person I loved most.